Welcome to Speak Up, the television arm of Freemasonry throughout New Zealand. I am Barry Rushton, your host, and thank you for joining us this evening on the last show for 2018. It's a great show tonight. My first guest is a well-known New Zealand actor of film, television and theatre, new Master Mason Mike Edward. And of course, to put the full stop on the program, our regular contributor Graham Houston, who will tell us a little about the rise and rise of the allied Masonry Brotherhood called the Shriners. Following him, we are proud to have as our last guest this year the pinnacle of Freemasonry New Zealand, the current Grand Master Mark McMeeken. We are honoured to have a real-life movie television star with us this evening. Welcome, Mike. It's good to see you, Mike Edward.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. Thanks.
Wonderful to see you. Yeah. Now, everybody knows your face, of course, from the Zach Smith days from Shortland Street and also from Filthy Rich. But before we talk about the television thing, which I'd like to do, I know it started quite a few years back. 20 years ago, you were in a feature movie, 1998, I think it was, and it was a Kiefer Sutherland movie. Right? And it was a soldier's sweetheart, I think, right?
That's right. It actually got renamed to that. I think they started with a Sweetheart of the Song Trebong, which for obvious reasons got changed. Yeah, but it was Kiefer Sutherland's low point in his career because he'd just come off all those big movies in the 80s, you know, Lost Boys and Flatliners. Yeah. And it was before he got the 24 job, so he was really struggling to get work in America.
Wow.
So I think this is maybe where people come at the low point of their career. But the movie was great.
Yeah. And well, the movie was about, wasn't it, about the Vietnam War.
Yep.
And the woman and men, how it affected their lives.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know if you've read the critic reviews, but they were great. They were terrific.
I didn't know that.
We're
no.
Such great followers of Rotten Tomatoes here, you know, and it had a 90+ rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Cool. No.
And what part did you have in that?
I was a greenie that went wild. So I was one of those. There were some soldiers at the time that went across to fight, and then just got so caught up in the whole war and the jungle that they actually went AWOL, and they just lived and they started sort of living on their own in the wild and sort of not necessarily even fighting anymore, but defending. And I became. That was the role that I played, and at one point I sort of got stitched up and did something, I don't know, I can't remember.
Was that the one that had the big sort of stitches down here? Was that the
No, that was Brokenwood.
Oh, that was a beauty.
Yeah.
But then you went on and did a thing called Reckless Behaviour, I think it was, and that seemed to be like the first of the internet sort of, what would you call it, blackmail, wasn't it?
That's right,
Someone's character got changed and then she set out to find them.
You know, these are so long ago, I can hardly remember. I think there was Adette Eustman was the actress in that, but yeah.
And then the last one I remember is you did I Survived the Zombie Holocaust, set in Dunedin.
Good, yeah, good Kiwi film.
Yeah.
You know, that was incredible to do. It was part of a scheme at the time called Elevator, where the Film Commission, rather than giving $4 million to sort of one film, they'd support 4 different films. So it was a very low budget and ambitious. And I remember the filmmaker at the time, Guy Pigeon, he shot it all, but then had no money left for post-production, so spent sort of 5 years Uber driving afterwards to put it together. But to his credit, he got it out, and I thought it looked really good.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
However, as you know, as I said before at the beginning, you're well known for the roles that you have in Shortland Street.
Yeah.
You started when you were 21, right?
Yeah.
21. If we have a picture of that, I'm going to put that up, you know, 'cause it looks great. But you ended up being probably the best villain in the whole show, right?
Oh, I'm sure that's subjective, but it was, he ended up becoming a villain,
Yeah, which is terrific.
Yeah.
Now, I know at the moment, are you destined to go back to the show? I know you left that avenue open.
Yeah, I think with Shortland Street, as long as you're not dead, there's always a chance that you'll get rewritten. It's really not in my hands, though. It'll be some producer somewhere going, oh yeah, let's bring him back, which can happen.
Not sure. Yeah. And so the same thing with Filthy Rich. I know that they did 2 series. Is there a third one planned?
No, unfortunately not. Yeah, it was successful, but I think it came at a time when its head was a little bit above the turrets with regards to funding, and it got a lot of funding, and I think people were looking to spread that more, which I totally understand. So I think they've changed the scheme now.
Great. Apart from television work, of course, you've done theatre work, right? And the more recent ones have been the pop-up globes. They are tremendous shows, aren't they?
Yeah.
You did a couple last year. Are you scheduled to this year?
No, I'm not doing this year. Okay. I did talk to them, but I have a few other things on with my own company to do. But Pop-Up Globe was just amazing. It's as an actor, it really reignited the joy of just acting, because you're so present with the people and you're looking at them and smiling, laughing and commenting on the aeroplanes and the noises you hear and what people call out. So you have to be very live, which is just joyous to play.
Well, the people who have been to it know just how intimate it is, because it's just, you're right there, you know, and they're right there, you know. Which is the character in one of those Shakespeare plays did you like the most?
Well, it was, I got to play the ass, Bottom, the donkey in Midsummer Night's Dream, which was pretty fun. Yeah, so.
I remember that Bottom sticking out there.
yeah. So he's good because he takes himself so seriously and is a big clown character. So
there's a great truism that says nothing ever is what it appears to be. So consequently, we think that acting is totally glamorous all the time. Now, is that a fact?
No, it's not. It's a hard job.
Yeah.
You know, it's the mornings are early. You can get called if you've got prosthetics as early as 4 a.m., 3:30 a.m. to go to a set. Spend 3 hours in a makeup chair. Spend 8 hours waiting, and then your shot get cancelled and get sent home. You know, so there's. It is very hard, and when you start as well, there's, you know, because we grow up wanting it so much, you know, we can often fail and trip over ourselves because we do want it too much. We don't have the relaxation we need. As soon as there's lots of people around and a boom pole and 30 people watching you, you can just freeze. And I remember moments early in my career where I just kind of had the terror, and it takes a long time to sort of work through that. Okay. In saying that now, after sort of I've done my time and earned some respect and getting better roles, it's wonderful now. You know, I know what I need as an actor, and I have enough confidence to, if I need some time, I can say, oh, hang on, I just need a moment here to...
Yeah, good.
And the same with auditions as well, so you do grow, but it's not easy and it is hard. Yeah.
So once the filming is done, it gets taken away, and it may be months before the actual film is complete. And then you have the gala night. You know, now that must be a fun thing to turn up and actually sit and watch the movie with others.
Yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. I separate myself out from the celebrity side of it a lot. I really invest in what acting is and a character is and the journey to develop that. But once I've done that job, the glitz and the stuff around the edges, I don't necessarily engage with too much, because I feel that is very false in lots of ways. People treat you differently and maybe think you're something you're not. I mean, it's wonderful to go there and see everyone and see the finished product, but quite often it's hard because you're only critical and you're watching yourself going, oh, why did I make that choice and what am I doing with my hands, you know?
Well, you had a bit of that stuff, didn't you, where people would say that you were a bad boy when you're out in the supermarket. Someone's like, oh, you're a naughty boy, you're a bad man.
I remember a lady giving me a croissant and saying, you're a horrible man. So thank you. But, you know, I'd rather that than someone saying you're a bad actor. I'd rather someone believe that I was a villain than actually just think I was not very good.
Well, that means, of course, that, you know, you've really got to be able to brush criticism off and develop a sort of a thick hide and not take that too much to heart, correct?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I discovered about acting, which I think is beautiful, is we all live our lives and we're putting stuff on to defend ourselves. We have senses of humour, we have jobs that we say, well, I'm a this or that, and I have this costume I wear, and I think good acting, most people think acting is putting something on, but good acting, I think, is actually stripping away and being in front of someone and being vulnerable and showing your fear and your, you know, all those things, but not hiding behind it, and being very authentic to being human, and the audience then will see that and recognise that and can connect. This links back to your question by, there is no criticism if you're authentic. Like, so if you do a job and you're true to yourself,
you know you've done a good job.
And you're with that, then that is enough. You don't need validation, which stands true for positive people. When people say that's amazing, you go, well, you know, that's okay.
Exactly. The same with music. It's not what you put in, it's what you leave out.
Correct.
Absolutely true.
So yeah, just sitting in yourself.
Mike, speaking about future roles, you know, I hear that they are auditioning for the new James Bond. I think you'd be a cracker for the role. What do you reckon? Sore shoulder and all.
It's very kind of you to say, Barry. Can you send this tape to the producers?
Well, mail it off tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Idris Elba's got that one under control, so he can have it.
I know that part of your life revolves around other things, and one thing that I'm particularly interested in is what's called the Dust Palace that you and your wife Eva have put together.
Yeah.
She seems a delightful lady. I've never met her, but just what I've seen on the thing, she looks great.
Look, Eve Gordon she's just an absolute. I never felt lazy till I lived with her. She's extraordinary. You know, she gets up at 5 a.m., does all her emails, trains 8 hours a day like a professional athlete, and drives this company. So, yes, I'm half of the company, but really I have to give her the credit for driving that. She's just done an amazing job, and it changes lives.
Just so that people know, the Dust Palace is a theatrical sort of company for training people with the silks and the...
Circus, yeah.
Circus, yeah.
So we run an aerial circus school, so we teach people circus stuff, and we make our shows ourselves, which we travel around when we can.
Which is sensational.
Yeah, well, it's really grown. I mean, I remember 10 years ago when we started, we were on Eve's credit card, you know, at the basement theatre and tripping around with our friends doing it for free. And this year we're with the APO again at Aotea. So
which is sensational.
Yeah, it's
one thing I noticed and I like about it, and tell me what you're looking for. Every year you do a scholarship for about 12 students.
Correct, yeah.
So when you do the auditions, what are you actually looking for? What's the spark that you're hoping to see?
It's just, when you talk to the kids, there's joy in some people's eyes. You know, you can sense it when you sit with people and they have this spirit within them, and you can tell. And you'll sit down with a young kid and they'll just be...
You'll tick the box, right?
Yeah, and you have, within 5 seconds, you know that they've got, 1, the interest, and 2, the joy. And we're trying to... Well, obviously, they've met a threshold of poverty that we're trying to support.
Okay.
But yeah, they stand out very clearly. It's quite easy to choose, funnily enough.
Well, it's a delightful thing that you're doing for a budding person. I mean, really. I mean, these things are not found all over the place. You know, so it's good that you've done that. Speaking about Eva, I know it's 5 years ago now, but you guys got married, and
Yes.
it was such, from what I've read and seen, a sensationally different wedding.
Yeah. Well,
Summarise it as fast as you can, because
as fast
it really...
as I can. Oh my goodness. Well, we were... At the time, I was on Shortland Street, so I was high on my B-grade celebrity in New Zealand. So we went and pitched our wedding to Women's Weekly and said, "We're going to get married. Would you like to buy a story?" And
Ever the entrepreneur.
yeah, that's right. We were broke actors, so we went blackwater rafting in the morning, and then played lawn bowls with our friend in the afternoon, and then got on a boat and went to Motahi, and we jumped a bit of driftwood for the ceremony. So we did all the crazy things, and. Then the Women's Weekly afterwards, they were like, "Oh, well, you didn't actually get married." And we were like, yeah, we did. We had a friend do the thing. But we ended up going into a register afterwards and doing it. So it was legit.
But the thing of the photo I like the most is the reception afterwards, right?
Yeah.
You were in the suit, and what was Eva in?
Oh, some purple or blue jumpsuit, was it?
Jumpsuit, like a lycra type thing.
Can you bring that up on the green screen?
Oh, I could. I will. I should get that. It was fabulous. The report was wonderful. Now, I think a lot of people know that prior to you acting, you were actually quite a strong sports person. You actually did the decathlon, right? And you trained for that. When did you start training for that? Your mid-teens?
I guess I started seriously with athletics 12 or 13. You know, about that age you start getting competitive. And I pushed that hard through secondary school, and then around 14 or 15. And I guess it's chicken and eggy, but I started having success, which made me train harder and find a coach. And decathlon was just at the time I was boarding at grammar and living in Hamilton. And the Hamilton coach was a multi-events coach.
Okay.
And I was training with her, and she said, "Well, have you ever thrown a shot or done any throwing?" I was like, "No." Or learnt to hurdle, and I was like, "No, not really." So I had a summer of her just saying, "Come on, let's do some multi-events." And then it got away on me. It was great. Yeah.
It seems when we see the Olympics, you know, the decathlon just looks the hardest thing in the world. You know, so there's 10 different events, as we know.
Yeah.
Some of them you must have loved, right? Which is the one that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I was a jumper first, so I was always a long and high jumper. So when it came to those events, I was fairly confident. At the time, I was a lot slighter than I am now because I was a jumper. So the throwing events were hard for me. Okay. I didn't quite have the mass, but decathlon was very relaxed, like the camaraderie amongst all the people competing over 2 days. Everyone has their event that they're good at. Everyone has the event that they struggle in. It's a very supportive group environment, the guys that go around. So it was a joy to do.
Well, when you touch on that, it's a little bit about like Freemasonry. It's a very supportive bunch of people.
Yeah, sure is.
So you've only recently joined. In fact, you've only just become the Master Mason, which is the last of the 3 series. And it's kind of good for this program because we have the youngest Freemason on, and we'll have the one after you, which is the Grandmaster. Right. So tell me how you joined, what piqued your interest, why you actually wanted to do it.
Look, it's that thing where it was a couple of years ago now, and you get caught up in life and work, and I was thinking about it, and I realised that my only acquaintances I was surrounded with were people I work with, you know, lovely people, but not ultimately. We don't really choose our friends after school. You know, we just go with where our life leads. And I was thinking about the values that I wanted to have in my life, and I started looking, and I found this group of men that sort of had this code of honour with words like temperance and prudence and fortitude and virtues, you know, and no one even knows what those words mean anymore. I didn't at the time. And I thought,
temperance especially.
You know, if you want to become a better man, you want to surround yourself with better men. Yeah. So that's I called and spoke to someone, had a coffee, and
great. Well, I'm sure you're going to be a great asset to the Lodge because, and we've had a guest on one of these Speak Up programs, another actor, a guy called David Weatherly, you know, and he's got such a commanding voice. And I remember the Lodge when he became master of his Lodge. I mean, it was so great to be there because it was a performance all the time, you know. So I imagine somewhere along the line you're going to sneak a little bit of that into this when you actually get up. And
look, I think ultimately the rituals are a performance, aren't they? You know, and I guess I have been spending my life learning that. So I'd say there are certain things that I'd love to do with it, for sure.
Mike, thanks for being a great guest, and all the best with your career. All the best with the Dust Palace and everything you're doing. It looks fantastic.
Cool. Thank you, Barry. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Our last show for this year is our regular contributor, Graham Houston. Graham? It is good to see you.
Thank you, Barry.
I know you're going to talk about an organisation that has been mentioned a number of times through this series. Tell us who you're going to talk about today.
We're going to talk about the Shriners. Now, one of the questions that's been asked of me frequently by a number of viewers is that who are the Shriners and what exactly do they do in their connection to Freemasonry? Many people have heard of the Shriners, but not sure exactly what they are. Well, it's probably true to say that all Masons, all Shriners are Masons, but not all Masons are Shriners.
They become Shriners.
So the Shriners is like an adjunct to the Freemasonry, and it commenced back in 1872 when there was a group of Freemasons that used to meet regularly. I think at Knickerbockers, I think it was called.
Second floor.
Second floor, and they were a very social group, and they felt there should be more fun and more levity within the organisation. And there were two guys, one an actor and one a doctor, a guy by the name of Fleming and one by the name of Florence, decided to do something about it. And one was over in the Middle East, and he attended a very formal or a very ceremonial function based on the Arabic culture. And the costumes, the music, and everything that went with it appealed. He went back, and that's what they decided to form this organisation based around that. They formed an organisation called the Ancient Order of the Noble Shrine, and based all of their activity in their ceremonial round, and their costumes are quite elaborate, as you would imagine, coming from a bit like the Thousand Nights or something in the Arabian Tales. And their big activity is fundraising, having a lot of fun, and being very visible in the community. And I guess a little unlike the Freemasons, where a lot of our activity, our fundraising, our charitable works is under the radar. They're very, very visible.
They're out in the front, aren't they?
They lead parades. They have these little cars that they drive around, and they've got the Shriners band, and most of the, many of the chapters have their own band, and so they are very, very social and active bunch of people. And what started as a very small organisation has now grown to around about 500,000 people throughout America, Canada and Mexico. One of their big fundraising activities, and I guess the thing that they're most known for, is the Shriners Hospitals, the children's hospitals. And the first one was in Shreveport, and the purpose of that hospital was to treat all children that had spinal injuries, orthopedic requirements, cleft palates and cleft lips,
and burns
and
too.
spinal injuries and burns.
Yeah.
And they treated children in these hospitals at no cost. It did not matter what the financial situation of the parents were, neither did it matter where they came from. And that was, given the American situation where you pay for everything, that was a huge, huge charitable function of them. And they set up an endowment fund that grew up to about $9 billion to help run these hospitals. Now that took a bit of hammering during the global financial crisis, and the fund diminished quite substantially, and it meant that some of these treatments now are paid for, particularly if the families do have medical insurance. Well, the medical insurance is expected to pay for it as opposed to being...
They won't charge them the co-payment if they just, whatever the insurance pays is what they'll do, which is great. I remember how big they were when I first went to America in '75 in little Spartanburg, South Carolina. There was a huge Shriners Auditorium, you know, and then there's got that sort of stuff all over the place.
Well, they have very interesting names for all these places. They call them temples, but they're chapters. We would know them as the chapters. And they have very interesting names. Now, you may have seen pictures of them, and they wear these fez hats, those red cylindrical hats with the tassel on the back. Now, because the organisation took its origins or from the Arabic side of the world, so too the fez hat, which the Fez came from the city of Fez in Morocco. And as some have said, it looks goofy. Others have said, well, we're supposed to look goofy. We're supposed to draw attention. We're supposed to be clowns with a serious purpose. Yeah. We go to visit children in hospital, we wear the Fez. We do the voluntary work, we wear the Fez. People know.
There's a parade.
That's right.
In the parade.
They see the Fez and they know it's a charitable organisation with a great reputation. Now that reputation is even built to the point where there is a regular golf tournament, professional golf tournament, and the players that play on the professional golf circuit play in it in Las Vegas every year, and it's called the Shriners Hospital Charitable Golf Tournament. They have a circus, and that's been going for many years, travelling throughout America, and it's about entertainment and entertainment for children in particular. There is another big sporting event that takes place in America. It's called the East-West Shrine Game, and that's a top college football players from the Eastern and the Western divisions meet and play on an annual basis. This started many years ago as a baseball game between East and West, and now it's changed to football. And that has a very, very big profile and is a very big event on the American college football. Now, if you follow American sport, the college basketball, college football is as big as the professional era. And so this attracts very big names as well. So the Shriners raise an awful lot of money for charity, and particularly the Children's Hospital. And most of that money goes back into the hospitals. And there are 22 of these hospitals now spread throughout America, and as I said earlier, Canada and Mexico as well. So the Shriners is the fun part, if you like. They have a lot of community activity, and the community see them there. But most importantly, they are trusted. They are trusted. And it has been said that if you are wearing the Fez, people will give. People know that when they give money, it goes to where it's supposed to go.
Right.
And that's the effect of the Shriners.
We don't have anything in New Zealand like this at all. Our Freemasonry in New Zealand is fairly sort of, British based and so on. And so I can see why they would have said, okay, well, let's keep going, doing the good work, but let's also make this a bit more of a social time too.
Well, I guess America is probably a bit more outward in what it does. And I know that some of the Grand Lodges sort of stood back and didn't exactly recognise them. And if my understanding is correct, I think even the Grand Lodge of England still don't officially recognise that they
probably
exist.
can't, right?
No,
they probably can't. They've got their own agenda. They've got what they're doing, and very good. Keep it up, you guys. But we'll let you go ahead.
And so now that you've got, as I said earlier, 500,000 people involved in the Shriner movement. Now there's a movement for the women as well, and the females, and their requirement is that they are married to a Shriner, have a father, a brother, cousin, uncle. They've got to have some connection to be there, like that.
18.
Over 18, and of course, if they have been a patient of the Shriners Hospital during their life, that also qualifies them to become part of the Shriners organisation. So, like the Masonic Lodge, where there's the Order of the Eastern Star, there are orders for the female side of the fraternity in the Shriners.
Remember back when we were kids, we watched that television show with Flintstones, and they had those Moose, what was it, Moose Lodge or something, wasn't it?
Moose Lodge. So they were the Order of the Buffaloes,
Oh,
which is
Order of the
different
Buffaloes.
from the Freemasons.
Oh, does it exist?
Yeah, well, the Buffaloes existed for many years, and this is like the Order of the Odd Fellows, and there's different ones around. And that's right. Their head of the guy was the Grand Elk. I think he was the head of the organisation, and it was a throw off at the Freemason fraternity and the lodges around there too. But it was always done in quite a respectful way, and I think again, Freemasonry and certainly the Shriners are very much respected in the United States.
Graham, a great way to end the season. Thank you, mate, for that. It's really good. We've cleared that up a little bit, I'm sure. People they want to find further information, they'll go and check them out as well.
Well, I'll check them out. The unfortunate thing, there is no chapter in New Zealand that you can belong to if you want to be a Shriner. So you'll have to do that through the United States.
Graham, we'll see you next year, my friend. Have a great summer and a great holiday.
Thank you, Barry.
See you,
and Merry Christmas to all of yours, and thank you for your support.
My second guest this evening, and the last one for 2018, is the Grand Master of the New Zealand Constitution, Mark Winger. Grand Master, nice seeing you.
Greetings.
Thank you for coming tonight. I know that the pressures on your time have been immense, and so for you to share a bit of time with us tonight is really appreciated. Thank you.
Delighted to be here.
What I wanted to do is to ask a number of questions, if you get your opinion on certain things, and obviously towards the end of the program, perhaps you can give us a bit of an idea what you've got in store for us in 2019. Now, as you know, you've been following our program, we know that for sure, but our program's called Speak Up in honour of the campaign that you started. Tell me, how did the idea for Speak Up campaign begin?
In the course of 2016, in preparation for the grand installation, I was in dialogue with Noel Ryan, a member of my lodge, and we were discussing opportunities to promote Freemasonry in a positive way. And through those discussions, Noel and I came up with this concept of Speak Up for Freemasonry, and using a trumpet recognised within Freemasonry to bugle the good news about Freemasonry. So it was really a joint effort through Noel Ryan and myself. We came up with the Speak Up concept. We then, to launch this, we used the grand installation itself. As Grand Master, I have an opportunity to speak to the brethren about what my ideals and aspirations are for my term in office. And in that, I launched the Speak Up for Freemasonry campaign.
That was a very great opportunity to do such, I would think, because I know sometimes in a lot of organisations you can run up against a bit of resistance on something that might be a little bit new, and I'm sure that if you sort of jumped in first, it sort of worked out well, as it has done.
Well, yes, I'm not a great one for setting up committees and having a committee to discuss with a committee what the committee should be doing. So this concept was Noel and I working together, coming up with the idea, working out the details as to how it would be communicated to the lodges, and then the launch was actually quite simple to achieve.
You know, in the past, of course, members of the public or people have thought there's been a bit of a secrecy amongst Freemasons. Where do you think that really came from?
I think it's arisen by default over many years, where Freemasons are told to keep to themselves their Masonic activities. They are taught to be humble. They're taught to be compassionate. So it's natural that Freemasons will go out and help those in need, but we won't talk about it. We won't tell people what we're doing because we're humble. And from that, I think it's grown over the years that we simply don't talk anything about Freemasonry, which was, to my way of thinking, quite wrong.
And so consequently, the people then are left to make up their own opinion, haven't they? Which is often so wrong.
Well, that's right. And what the public often do is they create their urban myths. And when we don't respond and don't say what the actual facts are, then the urban myths take on a life of their own.
So what you're saying is very similar to what's happening today about this fake news, isn't it? And spread into politics, it's everywhere, that if you don't say what you're about, other people will make it up for you.
Yes, it's a great opportunity for Freemasons to talk proudly about the wonderful organisation that they belong to.
Indeed so. Now, speaking about that, you're 2 years into your 3-year term. and it's been successful. How you're going to top it for the next year? How are you going to make next year even more successful than the ones we've done so far?
Yes, I've got a year to go, and I've got a number of initiatives that I'm keen to build on for 2019. 2019, of course, the primary role is to select our new officers, the new leaders in Freemasonry. We select them, a robust selection process so we get the best people for the job. We then train them and prepare them for their job in office. However, while we're changing or preparing for the change in administration, I still have got a number of projects that I'm keen to promote. First, we've got our strategic plan. It's a 5-year plan that we'll be launching in the first quarter of 2019, and that will be for discussion with the lodges, and I'm keen to get that put to bed as soon as possible. We also have an opportunity to continue to build bridges with the likes of the Royal Arch, our sister constitutions, our Masonic trusts, the retirement village trusts and our charities should be working a lot closer together and taking pride in Freemasonry. So I see an opportunity in this area for a really robust communications plan, which I'd like to bed down early in 2019. We're working on it at the moment. We're using external advisors to give us some guidance, and I'm keen to have a communications plan which will be nationwide across Freemasonry.
Fantastic. Sounds excellent. You touched on leaders before, and I remember reading something from Colin Powell. He was a 4-star general, and I think he was an American political person. And he said, when the soldiers stop bringing you their problems, that's the day you stop leading them. So what are your the 3 divisional Grand Masters, what problems are they bringing to you at the moment?
Right. I don't see them as problems. I see them as opportunities.
Good, of course.
So at the moment I've got 3 divisional Grand Masters for the North, the Central and the Southern divisions, and I think they are doing an excellent job. They are, if you like, my first line management team. They manage the lodges and the brethren in their divisions. So a lot of the issues that arise go straight to them, and they handle them, they resolve them. Where there's an issue which is a nationwide issue that needs my involvement, they'll bring whatever the issue might be to my desk. But as I said, it's an opportunity. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity, and I'm very much a solution-driven person. Okay. So for the last 2 years, we've made some great progress, and not necessarily each division having the same issues or having the same solutions, but working together in the interests of Freemasonry.
That's great. You see, because your image, of course, is the shepherd over the flock, so to speak. So in your opinion, what does a successful lodge look like?
Successful lodge, in my view, would have a lodge plan. Part of its plan would be identifying what it is about the lodge that gives its unique community of interest. Why would brethren join that lodge as opposed to another lodge? In some cases, it might be the only lodge in a town, and that's the community of interest. Other lodges have a community of interest which might focus on music, the arts. Other lodges have a focus on the armed forces. But for me, if a lodge has got a plan, if it's got a community of interest, and the two work hand in hand, then you will see that that lodge attracts new candidates. The candidates that they attract are interested, are involved in the lodge, they commit to the lodge, and they become long-term members of that lodge. So that to me is a successful lodge.
Added to that, of course, then, I guess it might be easy possibly to see what do you think is the biggest vulnerability of Freemasonry today?
I think the largest issue that we have facing us is one of a reluctance to speak up, a shyness. I look at some of the lodges around the country as I visit, and I see some great Freemasons around the countryside. There are some wonderful men who are Freemasons. To try and get them to talk about their lodge and to talk about Freemasonry in their town is a real challenge. However, you ask their wives, you ask the ladies of the lodge, and they will put into words what the men are feeling, but what the men can't say. So for a new candidate interested in Freemasonry, he will talk to the man. Tell me what you do at your lodge. Why should I join your lodge? And what will I get from your lodge? Now, if the man can't communicate that, if he can't speak up about his lodge in a meaningful way that says to the candidate in plain English, this is why you should join Freemasonry and this is why you will enjoy it, then we have a real challenge.
You see, then of course that's really the master of the lodge's job, is to actually have a pulse, have a feel about what's going on in the lodge and make it easy for the brethren to actually speak up. That's part of his jobs. Tell me, as Grand Master, what do you think the biggest challenges is that you have faced?
I think for me personally, the biggest challenge I've had is one of adjusting to being the Grand Master. When you act as Grand Master, you have to forever be thinking at the back of your mind, you are representing the office of the Grand Master. It is not Mark Winger, the individual. It is not me preferring to do something because it's more convenient. You've got to always bear in the back of your mind, you are representing the office of Grand Master. And I use the example when I was in Australia at one of the grand installations in Australia. The Grand Master read a lesson in the cathedral in the capital city. And he did so not wearing a jacket, not wearing a tie, but appearing as an individual to read the lesson.
Quite casual.
Quite casual. And to me, I didn't see that was doing the office and giving it the dignity that it required. So, as it transpires, when the Grand Masters meet in Australia, we always spend 2 or 3 hours in a little conference having an update on matters affecting Freemasonry. And I raised the question to see whether my other Grand Masters thought that there was an issue there. And sure enough, unanimous that the office of Grand Master is one of the highest dignity, and therefore when you are fulfilling that role you must act with the dignity and the decorum that it requires. So for me, my natural instinct is to be friendly, casual and formal.
One of the blokes.
Yeah. And for example, I'm Auckland based, so I live in Auckland, and for the last 2 years my ability to casually pop along to a lodge has been curtailed. Because when I visit a lodge in Auckland, even though I'm still Mark Winger,
the machinery has to set up, doesn't it?
Exactly, and so it is the Grand Master who is visiting, and it's the Grand Master, and it's the Grand Master. And so when I do visit, it's with the knowledge of the District Grand Master, and I will usually have my team with me, my escort and so forth, and it's an exercise. And again, the office of Grand Master demands that level of propriety, and it demands that the brethren pay the office due respect. Once I'm a past Grand Master, hopefully normality will return. But in the meantime, that's one of my real challenges, to curb the enthusiasm to be one of the boys and instead focus on the office of Grand Master.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, that does make a great deal of sense. So I guess we can be looking for Freemasons 1 and the Beast to come shortly, the big armoured vehicle and the aeroplane, they're being ordered.
Well, look, I need a plane. And anyone called Winger should have a plane, I think.
I'm with you.
Yeah, but I don't think the Board of General Purposes will go quite that far. No. Exactly.
Mark, I think a lot of brethren would have always thought, now how does a Grand Master get picked, you know? And so we're not going to ask you that question, but I would like you to go back 3 years when obviously your name came up or you were being interviewed or whatever, and they said, the job's on, whatever. What was the final thing or the final fact that you said, yes, I'm going to take it. I'm going to accept the role of Grand Master. What were you thinking?
I think you make that decision before you put your name in the ring. So before I agreed to have my name go in as an applicant, you go through and say, well, why are you doing this? And if you're doing it for your own self-glory, well, don't waste your time. If you think you've got something that you can contribute to the organisation, some way that you can add to what the organisation is doing, so that when I finish my term of stewardship, I'll be passing it to my successor, strengthened, enhanced, on a better grounding to go forward. Now, if you can answer those questions honestly before you put the application in, then the
decision's easy, I guess.
See, added to that, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, that the time constraints on you are immense. I know that, well, a lot of people may not, but you're a successful partner in a big law firm. When you mentioned to your partners that, hey, I'm taking on a big job for 3 years, I mean, obviously they were supportive, they didn't kick you out. How have you handled your time within that working framework that you have of your life?
No, look, when you're thinking about taking on this sort of a challenge, you talk to your partners, you talk to, in my case, the firm, to say, now look guys, this is what I'm going to be doing. I have to say they were absolutely supportive. They were delighted with the honour that was being offered. What I try and do, because I am still working, and many brethren ask me when I retired, and I'm not, so I try and work Monday to Friday and focus my Masonic activities on the weekends. Okay. And what that means is I have very few weekends when I can laze away at home or have a round of golf or whatever, because I will be out doing things. And between now and Christmas, I think I've got one weekend when there's nothing planned. Now, that again sounds great in practice. Monday to Friday you work as a lawyer, and on the weekends you do a bit of Freemasonry. The reality is it doesn't work like that, because there are issues that come up and events that are throughout the week
Needing to be met.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to the Office of Grand Master. The charity supports research at Auckland University. So on Wednesday night I was at a Chancellor's dinner at the museum, being entertained by the University of Auckland to respect the contribution made by the Freemasons of New Zealand.
Right.
And it's the sort of thing that you do that because it comes with the office.
It's required, isn't it?
It's required.
Of course. Now, Mark, during your term, of course, you were privileged to go to the UK for the 300th anniversary of the British Freemasonry, correct? Tell us a little bit about that. Sounds fantastic.
So the Tercentenary was in October, November of last year, and it was an opportunity for New Zealand to be on the world stage with the other Grand Lodges from around the world.
The United Grand Lodge of England is delighted to welcome to the Royal Albert Hall today the most worshipful Grand Master and brethren from the following Grand Lodges. The Grand Lodge of New Zealand, the Grand Lodge of Tasmania, the Grand Lodge of South Australia and Northern Territory, the Grand Lodge of Western Australia, the United Grand Lodge of New South Wales, the Grand Lodge of the Philippines, the Grand Lodge of India, the Grand Lodge of Russia, the Grand Lodge of Mauritius,
Freemasonry has burned as a blazing fire through the last 3 centuries, burnishing some of mankind's greatest achievements. It has illuminated and inspired some of the most treasured works of literature, music, and art. It has pushed philosophers to dream beyond horizons. It has guided visionaries to found new nations, and it has brought peace and harmony into the hearts of millions.
Its grand principles are there for all to see. Brotherly love, the welcome to all people under heaven. Relief, a dedication to charitable work. And truth, the daily search for moral advancement. Many have concluded that Freemasonry's own description of itself is the best. A peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Today, we celebrate Freemasonry, its past, present, and future.
Medieval stonemasons met in lodges, where they drew moral lessons from the tools of their craft. Their legends recall that the art of masonry was first taught by Euclid, and that in England, 100 years before the time of William the Conqueror, a great assembly of masons met at York under Prince Edwin, where they drew up a historic code for the guidance of the craft.
In truth, no one knows precisely how philosophical or speculative Freemasonry grew out of the stonemasons' ancient guilds. But by the time of William Shakespeare, gentlemen, and not just working stonemasons, were meeting regularly in masons' lodges to practice the craft.
In the early 1600s, Sir Robert Moray, the driving force behind the Royal Society, was initiated into Freemasonry at Newcastle upon Tyne. Soon after, Elias Ashmole, famous as founder of the great Ashmolean Museum, was initiated into Freemasonry at Warrington.
Freemasons continued to meet and initiate new members throughout the period of the Civil War, Commonwealth, and Restoration. Then, exactly 300 years ago, in 1717, something happened in London which altered and shaped Freemasonry forever.
After the Great Fire of London, St. Paul's Cathedral had been newly designed and finished by Sir Christopher Wren. It was a triumph of stone and skill. In its shadow, 4 London lodges of Freemasons met together and took a momentous step.
Seated, brethren.
I call upon the Deputy Grand Master.
Most worshipful Grand Master and brethren, Her Majesty has been pleased to reply in the following terms. The Queen has asked me to thank you for your kind letter of loyal greetings on behalf of the representatives of the Freemasons under the United Grand Lodge of England on the occasion of the 300th anniversary of the foundation of the Premier Grand Lodge and the 50th anniversary of the installation of the Duke of Kent as your Grand Master, which are being celebrated on the 31st of October at the Royal Albert Hall. Her Majesty appreciated your thoughtfulness in writing as you did, and, in return, has asked me to send her warm good wishes to you all for a most successful event.
We attended the main celebrations at the Royal Albert Hall.
Huge.
Huge, packed with Freemasons from around the world, all in their regalia. Wow. It looked stunning. And then the stage show and the orchestra that the United Grand Lodge of England had put their time and effort in and resources into producing was just stunning.
World class, wasn't it?
Just wonderful. And you know, to be fair, the English are excellent when it comes to pomp and the ceremonial. So that was in Royal Albert Hall. We were then bussed to the Battersby Evolution, where 2,500 of us sat down for a catered meal, and the meal was one of the best meals I've had in my lifetime. It was stunning, absolutely stunning. So the whole affair in England was top class.
And so you travel also to Ireland and Scotland, correct?
Yes, while I was there, it's not often that the Grand Master from New Zealand heads up to the UK, and it was an opportunity to cement fraternal relations with the English, the Irish and the Scottish. So to each of their three Grand Masters, I presented a carved wooden Maori waka on behalf of the Grand Lodge of New Zealand. And I can say they were blown away. They thought it was absolutely stunning that such a beautiful gift had travelled halfway around the world and recognised the strength of the bonds that existed between the Grand Lodge of New Zealand and the English, Irish and the Scottish.
I noticed that you're wearing a lovely little collarette around the neck. I've seen a number of the Grand Masters, the past Grand Masters of course, wear them. Tell me what that does signify.
Yeah, the collarette is the centennial jewel minted for the Grand Lodge of New Zealand for our centenary, and it's worn by each Grand Master and passed to my successor when I invest my successor. And past Grand Masters have a copy, but this is the original.
This is the original. It's fantastic. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It's very stunning, and I'm delighted to wear it, and I do so with pride.
Now, Mark, before we finish up, I know that next year I think you've got some new initiatives planned. Are you at liberty to disclose a few details on what you're planning for next year?
Some of the planning we're doing at the moment is focusing on the grand installation, and so we're looking at making that a real event. The idea of making announcements at the grand installation, as I did 2 years ago, to me makes a lot of sense. It encourages brethren to attend, to hear firsthand what's being planned. We're also looking at inviting some very special guests to the grand installation, and again, closer to the time, we'll be able to confirm exactly what's going to be outlined there. We are talking to the Milligan Institute in Wellington, and it's an opportunity for the Freemasons of New Zealand to be involved in some exciting new research which is going to impact on the man in the street.
Right.
And I'm due to make an announcement on that in the next week or so, and it'll be distributed to the brethren this year, but it will be an event which will work throughout next year as well. So we'll be looking forward to supporting Milligan in their research. As well as that, there is the building of the bridges with our sister constitutions. We had a meeting a month ago where we spoke about Freemasonry in 2040.
Wow.
Not now, not tomorrow,
5 years,
not 5 years out, but 2040. And the sister constitutions were delighted that we'd had that meeting, opportunity to sit down and talk Freemasonry. And there were some great ideas that came out of that. But the main thing was we're all sitting down together in the same room talking about our beloved Freemasonry, because to the public, we're all one. They don't understand all these constitutions.
Of course.
And so having that meeting was advantageous. The outcome is that we want to repeat that again in 6 months' time. And a couple of months ago, I had a meeting with the Masonic retirement trusts, principally around in the Central Division, but also an opportunity to say, now how can we work closer with those retirement trusts? They call themselves Masonic, so they're our shopfront. How can we use them to speak up about Freemasonry? They're delighted that somebody's taking an interest in them, and I think we can work closer with that. We talk to our charities. We have a number of large Masonic charities, and I'm keen to see how we can get them working together, not to replicate what they do, but to cooperate and collaborate in their activities. And then once we've got that, I'll have a communications plan which will be promoting Freemasonry. It'll promote it internally so that the brethren find out what's happening in Freemasonry in New Zealand in all these different areas. And it'll also be external, where we'll be talking to the public about Freemasonry.
Fantastic.
And I hope in the plan for next year that your initiative for this Speak Up television program is going to feature high. I can tell you this, the strategic plan that Freemasons are developing for the next 5 years will have as its central theme, Speak Up. The role that this TV program could play in that program, in the communications plan, is yet to be decided, but we'd like to talk to you, Barry, about the opportunities to extend this through a further series next year. Now, whether that means, I know you're focused on the Northern Division and there's resource reasons for that, but if we could extend it and get brethren from Wellington, from Christchurch, from other areas who have got some wonderful stories to tell about Freemasonry.
Absolutely.
If we can get them involved and part of your series, that will be wonderful for Freemasonry.
Well, thank you for that, and that's a wonderful endorsement. And of course, I know you know this, that it has always been our intention to be nationwide. And as you mentioned before, it was more logistics and finances. But the start has been made, and we've been pleased with it, and it's been great. Mark, thank you for having the time on the show with us. We really, really appreciate it. And from behalf of the Speak Up TV show, we wish you, of course, the greatest Christmas and a fantastic New Year. And we hope that you'll, at some stage next year, if the show continues, that you'll come back again when these other things are set in stone. And we'd be delighted to have you on again.
Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas to you, my friend.
Same to you and your family.
Well, that's our last program for this year. On behalf of all involved with the show, we thank you for your support. In particular, we would like to thank the Northern Division of Freemasons New Zealand, the North Shore Masonic Centre, and our good friends Peter Wilson, Peter Goodwin and Craig Louvre for contributing financially to bring these programs to you. We truly appreciate and thank them for their support and their commitment. Remember, anything you'd like to know about Freemasonry, please go to the website freemasonsnz.org or call the number on the screen. So, on behalf of all of us here, have a great Christmas with your family and look for us again sometime next year. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone.